Hello everyone, this is Evan here from the Trade Risk on Wednesday, June 22nd with a market recap video. We are first going to analyze the current market environment. We're going to look at some other markets, sector analysis, individual names, and then a few trade ideas at the end of this video. We get a lot to cover, so let's jump right into it. S&P 500 SPY ETF closed down 16 basis points today, basically a flat, lackluster, choppy day, and it's been like that essentially all week. So let's take a look at where we came from this week. This was Monday's session right here, and we started the week off with a nice gap higher, about 1% on the open, and you can see we did try and push higher on Monday immediately, and that was rejected, and we ended up closing near the lows of the session. Now, we still had a 64 basis point up day on Monday, but we did close near the lows of the session, and effectively those lows have held since Monday, and we've traded in this tight range in between 207.75 and about 209.50, so less than a 2-point range, and we're just sitting, waiting, idling here, right in the middle of a larger range that we could arguably call 203.75 to maybe 210 if you want to use the highs from this recent leg or the swing high here. So you'd say about 204 to 210. Thereabouts, give or take a point on each end of that. So we're kind of in the middle, just waiting and seeing. Now we do have, of course, the much talked about Brexit vote that I believe is taking place tomorrow. All tomorrow the voting is taking place, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I very well could be, so don't quote me, that the results will come out sometime after the market close tomorrow. So it looks like we have probably another day of just sitting and waiting ahead of us, and that's probably going to be what we should expect heading into Friday, and then we may have some fireworks, maybe we don't, who knows. No one knows what's going to happen after this vote and decision is made, so there's no point in sort of over analyzing this type of event. Now, the key other technical levels I want to point out, and just the structural levels I want to point out, you can see here on the weekly chart, we still have, and we're bumping up against this weekly declining trend line. And once again, this is a high stakes area. I'm going to continue to repeat that, because if we do start to get follow through higher above 209 and especially above 210, that can really start to ignite some type of squeeze, sustainable or not. It's still going to create some type of a market movement that people are going to either want to chase out of fear, or it's going to be a legitimate breakout to some type of big new leg higher. So just keep that in mind. This is still constructive action on the weekly time frame. We're above the 8 and 20, which are bullishly aligned. We're basing underneath resistance. I still think that's a bullish backdrop, even though we do have uncertainty and choppy markets on the daily time frame ahead of us. So that's the way I'm sort of looking at it. It's very sort of neutral here. We have long exposure on ourselves. We're not heavily long. I don't know what the exact number is, probably around 35% long, 40% long maybe, and that's just the way we're playing it. So there are setups that are still working. There are new 52-week highs being made, and we'll look at some of those later on in the video. Now, if we look at the IWM, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, because again, comments are pretty similar to the S&P 500. The levels are just different. You can see we're range bound. Technically, this is a better looking market here on the daily time frame. You have a cleaner impulse leg higher throughout the month of May, and then we're pulled back to the 20-period EMA, and we're finding support, and we're kind of consolidating here, just like we are in the SPY. Just the levels are a bit different. The Qs in kind of a different pattern altogether. Certainly the weaker of the bunch. We've discussed this now for quite some time, but this is kind of the way I'm looking at it. Until we get some move out of this, which probably isn't going to happen over the next 1 or 2 days unless we have a real explosive move, there's just going to be more chop and movement inside this type of wedge, triangle, whatever you want to call it, for the next couple of days or weeks. So that's sort of the way I'm looking at things right now. If we start to look at some other markets, TLT We'll start there. Is pulling off those highs. It's now on a 4-day pullback to the 20 period. Looks like there is some support coming in today. Had the nice breakout to start off the month of June here. So dip buyers should be interested in this. I'm interested in this. Almost pulled the trigger today, but just not enough conviction. Doesn't seem like it's a high probability pullback buy just yet. So I'm just watching this, but I am interested in the TLT potentially for some type of long trade. We'll go to the metals next. Gold, which is still just doing its thing, consolidating sideways. Again, weekly backdrop, I still consider constructive consolidation. Daily time frame, very noisy, and I think it's just going to be more of the same. Silver, pretty much the same thing. Weekly chart, I consider this in a bullish consolidation phase here after breaking out of this little channel, and it's just noisy and consolidating on the daily time frame. USO, this is where things get a little more interesting. We had at one point a pretty nice looking bearish sort of reversal day set up, especially as we were down here below 1170 near those 1160 lows in USO, and I was excited about it because it was probably going to be enough of a signal for me to jump on the short side here, but we didn't really get that. We got a little bit of a bounce off of those lows, and it's just enough that it makes me just want to sit and wait. We're not in this, we're watching it, but you can see it had this move lower below this trend line here. And again, there's a lot of ways you could probably draw that trend line. So it's again, use a crayon and not a fine pencil. But we kind of broke below it, and then we snapped back, and then it looked like we were basically going to roll back over today. But there's a little hesitation here. So keep an eye on USO. It seems to be struggling here at some type of inflection point. Maybe it's broadening out to a longer term sideways range. We'll have to see what happens. UNG, this one also staging a pretty nice reversal today. It was enough to get us out of our long position. We've been in this since about $7.20 or somewhere around here. So this was a great trade for us. Very easily could have just given a wide stop here and try and let this work for us for a little bit longer, but just given the run it's had, given there might be some, especially currency risk event with this whole Brexit thing in a day or so, it's just, decided to take this off and just revisit if it starts to act well again. So UNG, we're out of this, but still the trend looks pretty strong here. We'll have to see if it can break back below this $7.90 breakout level that it happened this Monday. So that's sort of that's the oil and gas. Next, let's look at UUP, US dollar, which is sitting here. And this, again, has a lot of potential to move. I think this is probably what has more potential to move, although I'm certainly not going to be in the prediction game for later this week. But keep an eye on this. Again, 24.50. That is slowly starting to morph, though. This is starting to not be such a control point. I probably need to redraw some of this consolidation. But we'll have to see what happens in UUP. You can see weekly charts still bearish formation on the 8 and 20 period moving averages. Now, getting into some of the sector analysis real quick, here's what's standing out on the upside. I'd say XLE has been performing well. You can see above the 8 and 20. Home builders has still been performing well relative to some of these other sectors. It's still consolidating sideways here, but it's still hanging in there, doing decent. Semiconductors continue to be more of a bright spot here. You can see above bullish aligned 8 and 20. And XLU and the staples both still performing well, consolidating recently, but near all-time highs in both of these sectors. So still staying very firm. On the downside, I just want to point out IBB because this has been hammered for quite some time now. And we're at some potential support. We're at a lower kind of trend line that has held in here for the past 3 retests. And now we want to see, can it hold for a 4th time? We got a bit of a reaction today. It closed up higher on the day. I think it was actually one of the best performers on the day. So that is constructive, but you can see big tail on the highs here. So keep an eye on this. IBB could be close to a trade. XBI, you could look at it similar, not quite at this lower end, but it's near some support. So keep an eye on there. But they have been lackluster, and financials continue to be the downside laggards standards as well. Needs to get back above, I'd say about $23 at least, 23 and a quarter, to start to look more interesting on the financial side. Now, getting into some individual names, we'll go with Apple, and this really is just a very noisy mess in here. It's just consolidating, it's range bound, it's messy. There's cleaner opportunities in my opinion right now. I think it is getting close to maybe an interesting area down here right around $92. This was the support on the weekly chart from August 2015, from the beginning of 2016. We had the brief breakdown in late May or early May, which was rejected. So keep an eye, see if we come back down here to this $93. If it starts to break below there, maybe you have some type of actionable signal. But for now, it just looks very messy. Google also at a very important level here, right around the $700 level. This has been support now since we broke above it back here in late 2015, so keep an eye on that 7,705 level. Facebook also looking a little vulnerable, 8 and 20, bearishly aligned and below some resistance around 116 until it gets back above here. The bull momentum side is still a little shaky. Netflix also in a tough spot. Weekly chart, you could see if you're drawing some type of consolidation like this, we're getting next to this bottom trend line here, which is held twice. Let's see if it happens 3 times. We're at this round $90 level. Let's see if support comes in for Netflix here. And then of course Tesla with the news out that they are making an acquisition bid for Solar City. Market clearly not liking that news, and because of that, we're down 10%. The one standout, I put this chart out last night on StockTwits and Twitter, but if you take the 61.8, or if you take this swing leg higher from February all the way to April, 61.8% retracement comes in right around 190. We were there last night in the after hours. Perhaps that's some support. You could also take some type of measured move here if you're into those types of things, right? Take the swing leg low that happened throughout the month of April, project it from this leg higher here, and it does look like we have some confluence coming in here right around 190. So keep an eye on that level more or less if you're interested in a hold or dip buy or any type of trade in Tesla. Finally, what's holding up is Amazon. Amazon's still holding up. It's consolidating. It's lost its exciting kind of up momentum, but it's still holding up, all things considered. Alibaba, this one also very stubbornly holding up underneath this big trend line here on the weekly chart. I've talked about this name for quite some time, so I won't go into it further. And then Twitter also recently has been on the rise. It's above the 8 and 20 period. It's above this trend line, starting to see some momentum to the upside, and Twitter looks to be pretty good. 3 names that I'll give you on the long side. LRCX, this is one that we're in. We've been in this for a few days now, breaking out to new all-time highs. Weekly chart, this is picture perfect. I talked about this in the broadcast I did last night, or yesterday rather. This just looks beautiful here on basically every single time frame. So take a look at LRCX price line. I believe it had an upgrade today, but also like this above this 1350 level. You can see this has been a range. I have to clear up some of these lines here, but you can see this has been resistance, and it's close to it now, breaking out. Some hesitation today, but see how this closes out the week. Be very interesting in price line. And then finally, X-Ray. This one also I've talked about for some time, breaking out to new all-time highs recently, and it's been in a nice uptrend. Give it some time. It's still consolidating. It did pull off those all-time highs. If it can start to get going above 64, 64.50 or so, that one should certainly be back in play. So hope this video helps. Covered a lot of names there. My dog's been eating in the background if you listen very carefully. You may be able to hear that, so I apologize. I don't know how that's going to come out. But thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, bottom right-hand corner. Otherwise, have a great day. Talk to you next time.